All right, everybody, welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we're going to read Second Chronicles chapter 18, verse 28 to chapter 19, verse 7. I'm going to pray it in. Everybody bow your heads. Father, thank you for getting us on this Bible study today, as we're going to read it further into some more details into Jehoshaphat and what he's going to get into going forward. In Jesus' name, amen. Uh-oh. Did you guys hear me in that prayer?
Yeah,
Okay. I'm going to give it a minute. And then if not, matter of fact, I'll give it a 30 seconds. If not, I'll call Matt, see if he's on a phone call or something.
It's not like
yeah. He said, "Wait, hold on."
keep going and let me go
Oh,
do
he did say that? I didn't even
Yeah,
hear him. All right, so we'll wait on Matt. While we wait on Matt, Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yo, did you knock on my door earlier?
Of course not. You're way too far away.
Okay, just making sure, because I was like, who knocked on the door? Somebody banged on the door, didn't ring the doorbell. I finally got to the door and I'm like, who banging like the police? It's a disappear.
Yeah, never
I was like,
no, that's crazy.
what?
that.
I
Maybe
was
it's because
like,
you mopped the floor with a robe. That's probably what happened.
oh, I'm gonna keep that in mind. Don't forget, it's a nice roll.
My bad. What, it had some like embroidery on it or something?
Say it again.
Did it have some like embroidery or something on it?
That and it was just real nice quality. It was just I've never felt one that nice before in a long time. Like my mom had one, but I was a kid the last time she had one that nice.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I'm about to get one now.
Just do a favor. When you leave and you move out somewhere, keep it with you. Just move and keep it with you. When you get here, you're gonna see a lot of stuff in like the living room and all other stuff. Don't worry about that other stuff. Your stuff is still in the same spot where it was before. I haven't touched it or moved anything, but just know there's a lot of stuff next to it. I put something to separate everything.
For sure.
What the frick?
There you go.
Company called literally at 5:30, but I think he's going to call again.
I was about to say,
So
I'm surprised you don't have him on Do Not Disturb.
I'm about to let him know that the next time I will put it on, I will not be responding. Um, being stupid. All right. So if he calls again, I'll let you go. I'll put it on the chat and I'll let him know this will be the last warning because I'm not going to keep doing this. It's 5:30 right now. You can text me if you even know how to text. So go ahead and redo the intro and then
All
we'll
right.
go ahead and get started.
All right. I'll redo the intro. Let me give it a couple seconds. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we're going to read Second Chronicles chapter 18, verses 28 to chapter 19, verse 7. Go ahead and bow your heads as I pray it in. Father, thank you for getting us on this Bible study today. As we're going to get into some more details of Jehoshaphat and some of the things he's going to get into going forward, maybe some side details as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Here. Amen. All right. So last time we had gotten into, we had almost finished chapter 18, just not quite. But everything could be simplified really into one thing, I would say. We had where God, as he had told through one of his prophets, manipulate Ahab into going to war. But the way that went about, God had allowed, there was a spirit that had asked, because God had asked who is going to push Ahab to go ahead and do this war. And a spirit had said, I will. And then when God asked how he will, the spirit said he'll put a lying spirit in the prophets that Ahab believes in, instead of the one that actually gives the truth. So we had because of what God had said through another prophet, that all of Israel would be split apart, would spread out, not be united, not together, not even in person. With all of that, with all of that, he had the spirit was going to lie to the Ahab to get them to be split apart. Go into this war even though they're not going to win. Showing how God does not lie, nor does he make somebody lie. So God is not a sinner, as we've said before. He would be a hypocrite if he was. But that does not stop God from using sinners or even sinful spirits to get things done that he wants done. And it goes to show that in a very valuable point in this situation. So the bottom line is, yeah, God uses everybody to have his will be done, not just the righteous. But just because he uses them does not mean that he's the one lying, does not mean that he's the one doing. He's not the one taking the action. He just knows how people and spirits are and uses them in their own faults. And so, as I'll go ahead and switch it to the first section, so Charles can finish out 18 and read. I mean, not finish out, you'll get close. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm going to read Second Chronicles chapter 18, verses 28 to 32. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds. Verse 28. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and will go to the battle, but put thou on thy robes. So the king of Israel disguised himself, and they went to the battle. Now the king of Syria had commanded the captains of the chariots that were with him, saying, Fight ye not with small or great, save only with the king of Israel. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, that they said, It is the king of Israel. Therefore they compassed about him to fight. But Jehoshaphat cried out, and the Lord helped him, and God moved them to depart from him. For it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back again from pursuing him. So, starting off, before I go, Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure you're on. So on 28, we start off with Jehoshaphat and I'm just gonna say Ahab. Ahab's the king of Israel that we've been reading about. So Ahab and Jehoshaphat, they're going to Ramoth Gilead, and Ahab is giving Jehoshaphat the plan, letting them know, look, I'm gonna disguise myself and I'm gonna go into the battlefield. You're gonna keep these or you're gonna put these robes on. So Ahab, king of Israel, he went and disguised himself and went to the battle, while Jehoshaphat stayed behind in the robes and king robes. um, Let me reread something real quick. Now the king of Syria had commanded the captains of the chariots that were with him, saying, "Fight ye not with small or great, save only with the king of Israel." So Syria, the king of Syria, is commanding his captains of his chariots to go fight.
Before you do, what does save mean?
Um,
Don't remember what it means in the Bible.
Bible sense. This one I might have to pull up the Strongs for this one.
All right. I'm glad I stopped you. This is something we've seen at least 15 different times, Charles. Just a heads up.
Constructive.
You
Oh,
should
as
already
in like
know this.
another way to say like accept.
There you go.
Yeah, it's another way to say accept. So in other
Good.
words, fight ye not with small or great, except only with the king of Israel. So basically, go out and fight and
Go out and
go
fight?
out and not go out and fight. Fight ye not with small or great.
Yeah, what does not mean, Charles? That should be simple.
As in don't.
Yeah, so does it
Don't
mean go
fight with
out and fight?
smaller.
Yeah,
Don't
there you
fight
go.
with don't fight with small or great, except with the king of Israel.
So say that more simply in today's language.
That's what I was trying to do. I threw myself off by trying to say this simply. Oh, and I overthought it too. So I threw myself off with overthinking it. So basically, the king of Syria is telling the captains of the chariots, don't do all this extra. Not even don't. You're only with the king of Israel are you going to fight with great and big numbers. Only you're going to have all these numbers with the against the king of Israel. If it's not the king of Israel, don't push
Did
that
he say
button. Don't
with
go there.
great and big numbers?
Well, no, he brought up with the without. Well, fight ye not with small or great.
Yeah.
So don't basically don't fight with
Don't.
small or great, except for the king of Israel.
So what does small or great mean? I
Well,
mean,
the
in the
small
context.
is in the context, a small army or a big army, small group of people or a large group of people.
What? Okay, you're not. I need you to re-explain because I don't know if you're incorrect or correct. What do you mean? What does small or great mean here in this verse? Did it say army? Did it say troop?
Well, no, this is the captains of the chariots. This is the king of Syria talking to the captain of the chariots in this.
Okay, and he's talking to the
So
captains of chariots, and then he tells them what?
don't fight with the small or great.
Exactly. So what does he mean by saying that?
That's what I was taking that as because he's talking to a captain of chariots. So don't fight with a small set of
Do not
chariots.
add
Don't.
nor subtract to the Bible. Did it say with troops?
Well, I mean, the captains of chariots. The chariots are the ones that are going to go into battle, right?
Did it say that they were going to go into battle with armies against armies?
No, it just said the captains of chariots.
Yeah, so we're talking to the captains of chariots. Did it say we're talking about captains of chariots to the captains of chariots? Are we talking about a second army?
We're just talking about the captains of the chariots.
Yeah, so don't add something that's not there. Haven't we heard the phrase small or great before?
In reference to something. A small
No,
this or
not in
small that.
reference to something. We've heard that specific phrase a few times before. Did you forget what it meant? You're way overthinking. You're getting too specific.
The only way I was thinking about small or great is either by like a large or large would be the great, small would be
Is he
the
being
like
literal
less,
here?
then more
If I were
metaphorical.
to, if I were to
More
tell, like, take
metaphorical.
it like I'm telling it to you. Don't fight any great or small. Only the king.
As in only focus on the king of Israel's the only other way I'm thinking
Exactly.
about it.
Exactly.
So the king of Syria is telling the captains of the chariots, I need you to focus on fighting the king of Israel. Only focus on the king of Israel.
Yeah. So the big or small, does that mean armies? Like when I told it to you just now?
Well, is that a metaphor? I'm taking that as a metaphor. If it's not the literal, then it has to be the metaphorical part.
And a metaphor for what? I mean, it's not literally a metaphor, but the concept is metaphorical.
Well, the concept,
If I
well,
told you don't fight with big or small, only with Chad.
oh, everything's directed towards Chad. Anything around Chad is not included.
Exactly. All it
So
means when it
basically,
says any the large or small, it's the same thing as we would use that today. I don't want you
so
dealing with
only
nobody else.
nobody else, just the king of Israel.
Exactly. Now, the turn of
Mm.
phrase great or small doesn't necessarily mean nobody. It means anybody, anything, depending on the context. Either anybody or anything. That's how that phrase is used. So when it says that, it's not talking about another army. It's just talking in general.
Which is
Fight
funny
ye not,
because
neither great nor small. So don't fight anybody great. Don't fight anybody small. In other words, if you got all the great and all the small not included, is there anybody left?
no, just the king, which I was just about to
No, no,
bring
no, no.
up.
I'm talking about the phrase itself. Is anybody else left if you include no great and no small?
No, unless you go back to that example you brought up earlier
Exactly.
with my brother's name. If you include him, then it's just him left.
Exactly. So anytime you see the phrasing great or small, what does that mean?
I want a specific thing. I don't want a
What?
group of people. I don't want this. I don't want that. I want.
No, no. I said, Charles, listen to the question I'm asking. When it says anybody great or when it says great or small, what does that mean then? I didn't say specifically in this verse. I said that phrasing.
Oh, and that phrasing, then nobody. If we take out the
Or
one what said after the comma, because then I have to add save only the or with the king of Israel.
okay, you're not listening to the question. I'm gonna say it again. Not in respect to the context here, just the phrase itself. Great or small. It doesn't mean
Don't.
nobody because there's going to be times where it doesn't work.
So don't deal
The
with the big.
Lord,
Don't deal with the smalls. What I'm hearing, what I'm understanding.
no. Charles, I just explained it. I'm going to explain it again. If you don't have the big and you don't have the small, who's left?
Nothing, because you didn't bring up anything else.
Exactly. So, and if you have all the big and you have all the small, who's left?
What? What do you mean if I have all the big and have all the small?
If
Because
you
now I
have
have big
all,
and small now.
okay, talking about the phrasing. If you have all the big and you have all the small, who's left?
The big and the small that you just brought up. Now that I have them.
Which would everybody, Charles, everybody is left if you have all the big and all the small. Everybody. So nobody does not work because there are going to be times where it doesn't work with the context. So the better word to use in place for it would be anybody. You understand now?
So what I'm explaining with verse 30, the better one that so you're saying the better way to explain it from the context in verse 30 was don't hurt anybody but the
Yes.
king of Israel?
But that's not what I was getting at. My point is because you're going to hear this phrase again in other verses. If you use it as a definition of nobody, there will be contradictions. If you use the definition of anybody, it matches the context of no matter what it is. Here we have where it says what? What did he say to him?
Fight ye not small or great.
Yeah, fight ye not. So if you use the word nobody here, it's already said, fight ye not nobody but the king. See, it works in this position. But what about when we get to another verse where it talks about that all the great or small had nothing wanting? They had everything they needed. Then if you use the word nobody, it doesn't work there because it's talking about a
Yeah,
blessing.
then it right, because then it doesn't make sense in that next context you just brought up. Okay. Now,
Exactly.
now I'm getting it. Yeah, now I'm getting
So the
it.
word anybody is a better replacement word to understand from from what it means with that phrasing. Just like whenever you see the word save, except, that's where you want to be. The only times that save actually means save as we use it today is when it's in the context of salvation. But anytime you see a phrasing of save only, you
Except,
could read that except. So
yeah.
you have that. And then on this side, whenever you see the phrase or the phrasing of great or small, all you have to realize is if you have great or small, that's everything included. That means no matter what it is, it's everything included. So he's saying everything included, anybody that comes across, don't fight them except for the king.
And I
See
was
that
right
now?
the yeah, I see it now. Now I see where you're getting at. Which is funny because Jehoshaphat's wearing the robes, and Ahab, the king, the actual king of Israel, is disguised in battle. So they're gonna be they'll be gunning for Jehoshaphat rather than Ahab, which we get into verse 31, them seeing Jehoshaphat and seeing the king and going after to fight him, but Jehoshaphat cries out to the Lord or God, and God helps him out. And God puts them in a position where they, run away, they depart from him. Let me reread one more thing. Where it came to pass that when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back again from pursuing him. So after God helps out Jehoshaphat from when they saw him in the robes, verse 32, when they perceive or find out that it wasn't him, that he's not the king of Israel, they're turning back around. Let me see. Oh, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I mean, I was. Is there anything else you want to add? You said it like there was more you were gonna say.
Oh no, my bad. No. That was it. That
You
was
said,
it.
and
No,
they
I
turn it back around. Like, okay, like what's?
my bad.
Charles, you're being
Cause I
weird
went to
today,
the
bro.
because I went to the app and I saw participants and you unmuted. I thought you was about to say something.
No. You were taking a long time to say anything else. So I didn't know if you had more you wanted to say or if you were just waiting on me. Like, cause I leave it muted while I
So
wait for you.
my bad. So no, they just turned back. Once they perceive it isn't him, now they're turning back that same direction to him. And that's all I needed to say. No, because what I did was I said it. I went back to the app and then I saw you unmuted. So I didn't want us like talking over. I didn't want to talk over you and you talk over. I didn't want to do all that. So That's why I paused, because I thought you was gonna say something.
No. I always unpause when I always unpause. I always unmute when you guys are getting close to the end because like so it's more fluent when we're reading.
Go ahead.
So if you
I'm
have
done
more
now.
to say, good. Okay, not. Now, one piece of correction I would give: the word perceived. Is that something that a 5-year-old would understand?
Perceived. Another way for a 5-year-old to understand for this context is understood, found out.
Yep. Or that they saw that it was not the king.
That too.
Good. So remember, when you go forward, when you're reading, keep in mind those phrasings. It'll help you a lot as you go forward because I guarantee you, when you were reading verse 30 before, especially where it said save only, you were reading it as they were not going to kill the king of Israel, when it's literally the opposite. Don't fight anybody, just save the king. That's how I guarantee you were looking at it before you took that context into account. So when we get these understandings of how, excuse me, when you get these understandings of how these phrasings go, you got to make sure to keep them in mind. There's not a lot of them that are repetitive every time, but the ones that are, they generally always mean the same thing. It's very rare they're different. All right. Now then, does anybody have any comments or questions as we go to the second section? Now would be the time to raise your hand. All right. And I will be reading from 2 Chronicles chapter 18, verse 33 to chapter 19, verse 3. Give everybody a second. All right. And a certain man drew a bow at a venture and smote the king of Israel between the joints of the harness. Before he said to this chariot man, turn thine hand that thou mayest carry me out of the host, for I am wounded. And the battle increased that day. Howbeit, the king of Israel stayed himself up in his chariot against the Syrians until the even. And about the time of the sun going down, he died. And Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, returned to his house in peace to Jerusalem. And Jehu, the son of Hanani, the seer, went out to meet him and said to King Jehoshaphat, shouldest thou help the ungodly and love them that hate the Lord? Therefore is wrath upon thee from before the Lord. Nevertheless, there are good things found in thee, in that thou hast taken away the groves of the land, and hast prepared thine heart to seek God. Here we have a very, very interesting point. First and foremost, Ahab is crazy in the aspect that you got shot, you are dying, but you held yourself up to make it seem like you're all right. And just enough to make it out to die later at a different location. It's like, it's funny because a lot of times when we see these wicked men doing these things, they seem to care more about their image than they do about even their own safety. Like, there have been at least like 4 different times, 3 or 4 different times I can remember, where somebody was struck and they weren't dead yet, but rather than getting themselves help, they asked somebody else to kill them because they were so worried about who got the credit for the kill. Oh man, don't be caring about image as much as you care about doing the right thing. Sometimes it ain't gonna look great, but it's the right thing. So, but anyways, then we get to chapter 19. Now, when we got into chapter 19, we had the son of Hanani, Jehu, went out to speak to the king. And he tells him, are you supposed to help the ungodly? This is a very important detail and point. Charles, what
Go
do
ahead.
churches say about giving money and feeding the poor and taking care of those who are not even part of the church?
I'm about to say, don't they talk about helping them?
Mm-hmm. Thomas, if you were to say that you don't give money to the poor, that you don't help out those who are homeless, those if they're not following the church, what would most people say? Would they say that you actually follow God?
Nope. That guy did not follow God.
Exactly. But here we see, not just as we've seen in the New Testament, we talked about it recently, where they commanded if somebody didn't even want to help themselves, that they were not allowed to help them. You got to be doing what you need to. That was a commandment in the New Testament. But here we see it's the same in the Old Testament, and even more so. The whole reason that Jehoshaphat is getting corrected, and we're going to go into what that is because not even because he helped out somebody who wasn't helping themselves, but because he helped out somebody who doesn't serve God. So think about this for a moment. Every time we look back at the concept of being a loving church, what is it to be loving? If somebody is sitting here and they smoke cigarettes every day and they're not trying to quit, am I supposed to help them out with finances? No. Somebody is an atheist and they are anti-God. Am I supposed to give them some stuff? No. Yes, we are to help those who are in a bad situation, but not everybody. We are to help those that are part of the church. We are to help those that are trying to do what God asked, not those who are just doing whatever. And that's the lesson that we could take all from 19, from verse 1 through 3. So he's correcting them, saying, are you supposed to love them that hate the Lord? Even Jesus said himself, who is my mother or father, except or brothers, except they that do the will of my Father in heaven? Who is my family except them that do the will of my Father in heaven? So when it goes into that, it's an interesting detail that he's getting corrected on this. Because if we look at what Ahab was doing, Thomas, was Ahab doing something that would normally be considered sinful?
Yeah.
It
Doing things
was?
in his he was doing things in his own willing way instead of going to God, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
he
I see
definitely
that's
was.
I see that as simple.
No, he definitely was. But take out the prayer part and the disobeying of what God had said, just the going to war part.
Okay, then no, because he wanted an answer.
Exactly. He went to some prophets. Some prophets told him yes, he could go to war. It was only one prophet that told him no. Just happened to be the one prophet of God. Now, if we look at that in comparison of today, anybody who's not following the Bible in context, Charles, are they any different than Ahab here?
No.
Exactly. Because going to war isn't sinful. Taking over beating the enemies isn't sinful. So when we really look at it, the grand scheme of things, what's the part that was sinful of Ahab that it said he hated God? Rejecting God's word of what to do. That's really what it boils down to. Because if you take those same behaviors that are sinful because of him not following God's orders, and you take out the God's order part and just do the action part, it's not actually sinful. but he considers that hating God in this verse context. So somebody who's doing their own thing, from God's perspective, instead, if they're not going trying to seek out what God wants, that's the same as hating God. And if you think about it, Thomas,
Yep.
if I believe that you know how to box, you know how to fight, and I have never trained a day in my life, and yet Charles, who we've never even heard of getting in a fight, never even seen a possibility of a fight, I go to him to ask him how to throw a punch and how to fight somebody. What does that show about how I feel about you?
I don't know what I'm talking about or doing with all the
Yeah,
experience.
I'm looking down on you in that example. Because why would I go to somebody who has absolutely no experience, nothing to teach, and ask them for advice instead of the person who knows everything about the subject in this example? It's the same thing with God. If instead of going to God for an answer of what God actually says, if I go to something else, whoever or whatever that other thing is, they don't know more than God. They don't even know a drop in a bucket of water's worth compared to God. Matter of fact, a drop of water in an ocean compared to God. And I'm going to go to them when we have all to prove and show that God knows all things. So when we keep that in mind in comparison, Charles, even if Ahab had not specifically been shown to be against God, the very act of him turning to something else instead of God, what would that show about how he feels about God?
He doesn't show the same respect level or care level.
Exactly. Or in other words, it actually does show the hatred towards God. Because when you know that somebody has all the information and you decide to go somewhere else, there has to be a reason why you go somewhere else. It's not random. So when we take that into account and in mind of it, we understand. We understand completely. So yeah, as towards helping others, we see here where the correction is coming from a man of God who's the son of a prophet. And he said, and he didn't just correct him in telling him that you did something wrong. What else did he say, Charles? Don't forget to unmute.
I didn't even. My bad. Let me go back.
You know, I don't even have to look at it. I just, when you guys don't answer, I just know that you're not
Yeah,
you're
I'm
muted.
sitting here talking, and I'm like, and then you said it, and I was like, ah, man. Yeah, let me read it real quick.
Yeah, and remember the question. Not only did he correct him, telling him he's wrong for this, but there was something else he told him.
Said to King Jehoshaphat, shouldest thou help the ungodly and love them that hate the Lord? So not only helping them, but to to love the ones that hate God, which is kind of weird. Why would you
No,
love
that's
the
part of the
people?
correction.
Oh, that's
I said he not only did he correct him. If I tell you, are you supposed to love somebody? Isn't that correcting somebody?
ask the question again.
Not only did he correct him, but he also said something else beyond just the correction. And then
I
you
would
start
have.
going into the part that's part of the correction. If I tell somebody, like, are you really supposed to be helping somebody out that ain't doing right by God?
Well, the
Isn't that
first
correcting them?
so yeah, he corrected them for verse 2, but verse 3, they add in the fact that there's still good things in you
Nope.
with some of the
You
things you've
forgot
already
something
done.
in
You
verse
mean,
2.
oh, then yeah, I forgot something in verse 2.
Yep. Thomas, do you know what Charles forgot in verse 2?
Let me try to read it real quick and find out.
Mm-hmm. And the question again is, not only did he correct him, but he said something else as well.
Is he talking about? Say the question one more time.
Not only did he correct him, but there was something else he told to him as well. What was the other thing he told to him?
In regards to the consequences, correct?
Yeah, there you go. There is going to be wrath upon you for this. Wrath. Charles. Wrath.
Yeah, yeah. I put them two together instead of separating them. Yeah, I got it.
Then let me give another piece of correction. This is not a you're in the wrong correction. Punishment and correction are not the same thing. You could spank a child and it have nothing to do with trying to teach them the right thing. You could punish a child and they're literally doing the right thing. So correction and punishment are not the same thing and they're not corrected. They're not connected. They generally
got you.
happen around the same time, but not the same thing. So
I got
the
you.
punishment, there is going to be wrath for this. You ever thought about your own life in relevance to this? This is a self-reflection moment. And all the people you tried to help or tried to be there for that were not right by God. Think about that. And then consider how your life has gone, good or bad, in situations like that. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a limitation to this. Love your enemies. Do good unto those who hate you. But Charles, do I have to be an assistant? Do I have to be helping people that are, that are against God in order to be doing good unto those that hate me? Do those actually connect?
Ask the question again.
Thomas, I'll give you the chance. Charles is off today. So, Thomas, do I have to be helping somebody in order for me to be doing good to those that hate me?
No.
Exactly. There's a difference between doing good by people versus actually being assisting to someone. A good example that Jesus uses is a centurion asking one of the Israelites to carry his armor for a mile. He says, go with him twain. Okay, you're going above and beyond. You're doing right by them. Another one he talks about when he talks about turning the other cheek. If you're in a position or time where you could turn away instead of responding in anger, you're doing good to them. But that is very different from I have a friend who is not in God, who is anti God, but I'm sitting here chopping it up with him, hanging out with him, and I'm helping him to better his life, or I'm helping him to with a place to stay with me. There is a difference between doing right unto others, regardless of how they treat you, versus actually being a consistent help, being a friend of an enemy. In other words, you get that, Thomas and Charles? You guys see the separation?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So that is that portion of that second section. Now, the third part that he points out, which is also something we could take a lesson from, is the part that Charles brought up in verse 3. Nevertheless, there are good things found in thee. Now, we don't know what he's about to say after verse 3, but we know that he already told him there's going to be wrath in his life for loving the ones that hate God. In other words, going above and beyond just doing good to those that hate you, but actually like those that hate God and going above and beyond that to actually like consistently be there. So then in verse 3, he points out, yeah, there's going to be wrath, but here, but yeah, there are still good things of you. So I guess we'll get into next time what he's about to say with that. All right. Does anybody have any comments or any questions as we go to the final section? All right, then go ahead, Charles, when you're ready. But
All
before you
right.
do, let me say this. Make sure to take a quick step back, take a deep breath, and take your time as you read, because today you've been way off more than you have been in a couple weeks. So get your mind focused before you start reading this last section.
Got it. So I'll be reading Second Chronicles chapter 19, verses 4 to 7. I'm going to give it a couple seconds. Verse 4. And Jehoshaphat dwelt at Jerusalem, and he went out again through the people from Beersheba to Mount Ephraim, and brought them back unto the Lord God of their fathers. And he set judges in the land throughout all the fenced cities of Judah, city by city, and said to the judges, take heed what ye do, for ye judge not for man, but for the Lord, who is with you in the judgment. Wherefore now let the fear of the Lord be upon you. Take heed and do it, for there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts. So let me go back. Verse 4. Let me reread something real quick. So Jehoshaphat staying in Jerusalem, he goes out again. Well, brings up that he goes out again, going from Beersheba to, well, two places, from Beersheba to Mount Ephraim, and it brings up him bringing back people to the Lord. So this is the good aspect of Jehoshaphat. Also, him setting up judges throughout like the different cities of Judah, through all the fenced cities of Judah, and then telling the judges. Let me reread something. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let me click on this one. Now, when I re-explain take heed, can I just re-explain it as pay attention to what,
No, because what is it like? What is heeding something? What are you heeding?
you're
If
listening
you're
or you're
heeding
hearing
something,
something. You're hearing something.
not just anything. Would you say take heed? You're gonna have a wonderful day.
No. Like you're hearing what someone's about to tell you. Like
Well, I just
as
told
in
you
like
that.
what
So does that work?
you're
You just said
you're
no.
taking you're listening to, what's another way I can put it? Instructions, basically. A warning, it could be instructions, it could be
Take heed. Make sure to wake up. Does that make sense? That's an instruction in that sentence.
it is it.
So
Oh
when
well,
is
yeah,
take
you'd have
heed
to.
used? What are
Another
we
way I
talking
could,
about here? Is this
as
just
in,
instructions?
well, it's just him talking to the judges first, so they're, listen up kind of
Is it?
thing. Well, Jehoshaphat, and you
If you
said
were
to the
telling a
judges.
5-year-old take heed, or if you were telling a 5-year-old listen up, are you telling something positive?
Yeah, it could be negative. Um,
could be. When have you ever said, listen up, and it's not something that's extremely important and it's normally negative? It's like negative 99% of the time. I mean, matter of fact, you don't even use the phrase listen up.
No, I don't. I was just thinking about another way to re-explain it.
When have we ever heard somebody say, take heed? What is the situation going on? In movies or what have you?
Well, that's what I was thinking about when someone says it. Like let's say it's in the movies or something. When someone says the words "take heed," people stop what they're doing to hear what this person has to say. They're dropping things to hear this person out.
Is that the only thing that's happening? What's the
Well,
surrounding circumstance when they say take heed?
well, there's something bad, so it could be a warning. It could be something they need to like
There
write
you
down. And okay, we
go.
need to write down and we need to write the stuff down so we're prepared for what's coming. That's another.
No, not write down. When have they? Okay, when they take heed, do they always write something down, Charles? In those movies and stuff where you see it, they don't write things
No, they
down.
already have it. They already have it in their memory. They already have it in their memory because it's something important they need to
Yeah.
keep in
So
mind.
what is the situation whenever they're saying take heed? It's a warning. You are really off today. I've given you the instruction specifically about taking heed of being a warning at least like 5 times in the last month. Literally the last month. It came up with something that Chris was reading, came up with other things. Take heed means I'm giving you a warning. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm off, but yeah, I'm all right. I don't know what else I could be other than off.
All right. A heeding is a warning.
So then I could just
Matter of
So
fact, what does
Jehoshaphat
heed
is.
say in the dictionary?
Let's go to
Let me just
Strong's
see.
because the Strong says a primitive root to see, literally or figuratively, in numerous applications, direct and implied, transitively, intransitively, or causatively, advice, self, appear, approve, behold, certainly, consider, discern, make to, enjoy, have
All right.
experience.
Now, if I'm considering, or if I'm getting advice, why would I need that? Do I need it just if something's going to be going good?
No, if it's gonna be going bad.
I need advice if something could go bad. So off of the dictionary, the definition, you should have been able to know that that was a warning. You see what I'm saying?
Not with that last part. When I go to a primitive root to see, literally, and it has all of these other things. The context, I should have known it was a
But look
warning
at
rather
look at
than.
all those. What do all those have in common? Remember, the dictionary is giving all the possibilities of the word. All of those have the same exact thing in common. A primitive root, properly to hedge about. Well, you probably don't know what a hedge is, do you?
Well, it starts at to see, literally or figuratively. So I got to go back to the
No, it
properly
doesn't.
part. Mine says Strong's to see, literally or figuratively, in numerous
Take
applications,
heed in verse
direct and
7.
implied. Let me go back.
I got H8104. And
So
nowhere
my
do I see it say to see.
wait, where's take heed in verse 7? Take heed's in verse 6. Oh, here we go. So take heed in verse 6 is different from take heed in verse 7. They're two different ones. One says H7200, the other says H8104.
Oh, okay. Well, let me go to that one. All right. So a primitive root to see. All right. Now the take heed in there. Okay, that take heed. That's not okay. So you were talking about different take heed.
So, okay, I see what you're talking about. So the take heed in verse 7 would have gave me the answer. I clicked on the one in verse 6, which is different than the one on 7. I clicked
But I
on
would
H
honestly say you should have
7200.
gotten it from both, even without that, because and said to the judges, take heed what you do. If I'm telling somebody to watch what you're doing, what am I telling them? Or what am I doing to them?
You're about to give a warning.
Yeah. So even without that, even going from that, using the word see, and he said to the judges, see what you do. What does the word for mean?
Because
Yeah. Because ye judge not for man, but for the Lord, who is with you in the judgment. So even from that, you should have been able to get the context of it being a warning, not to pay attention. You're too focused on, and this seems to be your problem today. Your problem today is you're too focused on the details and not looking at what it's overall saying. Like, take heed. If you look at everything surrounding it, you don't even need to look in the dictionary to get that understanding. You see what I'm
so
saying?
what's when I re-explain it, what's another word I can like to instead of saying like re-saying take heed to re-explain the
Be
verse 6 for a
warned.
5-year-old. So okay, so Yehoshaphat telling the judges, be warned of what you do, because you don't
Be
judge for man.
careful. Yep.
I'll use be warned. Be warned for what you do, because you don't judge for man. You judge for God, because you judge for God, and God is with you when you're making these judgments.
Yeah.
And verse 7 was the last one I read. Wherefore
Anytime you
now,
have the word heed in any other definition, you could always use the word warning in replace of it. Now, here's the thing though, and this is a very important detail we had to deal with when Chris was on reading. I mean, you can't do it in the opposite, because if I'm giving you a warning, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm telling you to heed something. Because if I'm telling you to heed something, that's a warning directly. But if I'm giving you a warning, I could be it's not necessarily you're going to be at fault. It could be like I'm warning you about the distance. I'm warning you about there's a cliff. Hey, just a warning, there's a cliff over there.
as a warning
So
of, so
when
you
so you
don't make the
can't do it in the
mistake I made,
opposite.
kind of thing. Can you hear me?
Oh, a warning is just letting you know. Yeah, I heard you.
Okay, I didn't hear, because I said something and it went blank.
No, I said a warning could be something that's not necessarily related to punishment or something bad happening to you.
Just a broad sense of a warning. Yeah.
Just a broad sense. A heeding, like heed the warning, is a more specific version of a warning. If I'm telling you to heed something, I'm telling you that whatever it is, there's going to be a cause to it. But a warning could be for something that actually doesn't have a cause necessarily. I can give you a warning about this is a land that like Texas, there's tornadoes that go on in Texas. I just gave you a warning. But if I were to tell you take heed, there's tornadoes in Texas, I'm doing more than just warning you. I'm telling you, okay, you need to be watching what you do. I'm telling you to be cautious and be warned. You see what I'm saying?
That's what you're saying.
So it can work one way, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way. Because a warning is it's specific somewhat, but there are levels to warnings. It's kind of like when we talk about anger. There's anger, there's pissed off, there's enraged. Like there's levels to it, even though they technically mean the same thing, but they
Right.
don't have the same effect in their usage. There's advice, there's there's criticism, there's a warning, and then there's telling somebody to heed something. Those are all technically the same exact thing. You're giving somebody advice, every single one of them, but each one is a different kind of level. You see what I'm saying? And one of them isn't even on the negative side.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but this one's just a broad sense of a warning.
No, this one's not a broad sense.
Go ahead.
All right, Charles, these are the levels. I'm going to say them again. There's just giving advice,
All right.
then there's criticism, then there's a warning, and then there's taking heed. So is taking heed just getting a generic warning? Just a little piece of friendly information? No. Taking heed is letting somebody know there will be consequences coming. No matter what subject you talk about, if anything ever says to heed a warning, it always is in reference to there will be consequences. And it doesn't have to be your behavior, it could be somebody else's behavior, but to take heed to something is always in reference to consequences. Specifically. But you should be able to know that from what's in this reading. What does he tell him to take heed to?
Oh, so let me go back. Take heed what you do, for ye judge not for man, but for the Lord. So first part in verse 6, making sure you're judging not for man, but judging for the Lord that's with you.
So is that just a general piece of advice?
No, that specifically isn't.
You see what I'm saying? So we're not talking about a general piece of advice when we talk about take heed. We're talking about you better do what I'm telling you. This is a reprimand. This is discipline, or in other cases where it takes heed, it's a warning that bad things are going to happen if you don't take care of these things. That's what take heed means. It's a warning of consequences. I would say also it's a condition. You know what? Why don't you go ahead and write this down? This would be a good definition to remember for it.
Give me a second. Matter of fact, no, I don't have a pen in the house. Let me put it on my notes on my phone. Give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
It's a warning about consequences that may not come or may not be as bad.
Stop.
It
It's a warning of consequences that may not come. What was after that?
or may not be as bad.
May not be as bad. Okay. Keep going.
If you take certain actions
If you
or
take certain actions or
avoid certain actions.
give me a second. Or if you avoid certain action.
Certain actions. Yeah. So it's conditional.
Conditional. Go ahead.
So that's it for the definition part. But a good example of this would be when disciplining a child. Let's say you had a son or daughter that stole money from Walmart and you found out. You have to discipline them. You already discipline them. Cool, that's done. You let them know, if I ever catch you or find out that you ever do something like this again, then I'm going to smack your behind so hard. I'm going to beat you. You're going to get a beating so hard, you won't be able to sit for a week. That's a good example of a heating. I'm telling them the consequences. I'm telling them what could happen wrong, but it's also based on the choices made. Another example of this is, let's say you have a son or daughter and they have a friend who's into Wicca or into some other false ideology. And you tell them your soul is at stake. And if they're going to be practicing that around you, you can't be around them because you can get caught up in it. And they can try to get you into it. And that could lead to damnation. So you're not allowed, you can't be having friends like that because of what it can lead to. On both of those, it's a warning, true, but they're not just a warning. It's specific to, here's the behavior you need to do, and if you don't, here's the problem that will happen. Or here's the behavior you need to stay away from, and if you don't, this will happen. Those are examples of heatings, more specifically than just a warning. A warning would be in those same scenarios that you shouldn't steal because stealing is bad. Things can happen when you steal. And on the other side, well, yeah, you really shouldn't keep friends around that are into ungodly things. You see the difference, Charles?
Yeah, with some of the examples you've been giving me.
Yeah. So one of them is a generic warning, whereas the other one has actual consequences referenced. And that's really the biggest difference between a generic warning and something to take heed, is that the consequences are known. But, and let me say this, when you're explaining it, when you're explaining take heed, the best way to explain it is be warned.
I was just about to do that with verse 7.
Yeah.
Because he uses it again where he talks about let the fear of God be on you, be upon you, and be warned and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And do what we were talking about earlier about judging for God, not for man. But with the end of verse 7, for there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, as in no sin or evil. And well, we already talked about that in the last study where God doesn't sin. Where
Exactly.
the wicked spirit volunteered to be wicked rather than God telling the spirit go be wicked. No, the wicked spirit volunteered to be that, and God's like, okay, so yeah, no, we've already talked about how God doesn't sin.
I thought that was
And
great that it was the chapter after that it says it.
yeah, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts. So the last part, I understand it as God not taking gifts from people. Of course, we know that. People that don't follow the Bible know that too. I got to re-explain for a 5-year-old, nor respect of persons.
Mm-hmm.
No evil, no sin in him. He's not taking any gifts. I'm overthinking this too. Nor respect of persons. But when only God's followers he shows respects to. If you're not a follower, he shows nothing to him. So, so he technically doesn't respect people unless they're followers.
Nope. Good try. No respecter of persons. We've talked
I
about
got
this
no.
one
It
before
says
too.
it says nor respect of person. Is it respect or
Nor
respect?
respect of persons. Doesn't matter. It's the same phrasing, same exact words. What does it mean in the other one?
What, the respecter?
What does it mean to be a respecter of persons? Does it mean you respect people generically?
No, that was specific.
Different from here. Did it
Sorry,
say
the
he doesn't
phone went in
respect
and out.
people?
Go ahead. So you just said, does he respect people, right?
Yeah. Does it say that he doesn't respect people? Does God disrespect people?
Well, no. He just leaves them to their devices, really.
So
We've
then
read
that
that many
can't be the
times.
answer there. So then that can't be the answer here then. So then what else could respect of persons mean? Is persons the same thing as people? Is a person more than one or one?
A person is just one, but it had an S, so that's more than one.
So is persons, well, yes and no. Is individuals, is that technically plural?
Technically.
Yeah. But is it actually plural when you really think about it?
No, not the way we use it, not the way we generally break it up.
Well, not with what it means. So persons, is that plural? Realistic, like when we really think about it, or is that individual?
So he's bringing this up in an individual sense, which I
Mhm.
wish it would have just ended it as person rather than persons, because that threw me off.
Well, no. Persons matter. Individual. Individuals. It's different than saying people, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between saying people versus individuals?
With people, it's just you can think about it just a group of people, but individuals, you can we're specific with the individuals compared to people's.
Yeah.
One's generic, one's
So
specific.
with people, one's generic. With individuals, it's specific to each individual person in the group. Same thing with persons. So what is he saying then?
So he's getting at a specific set of people then, rather than just a generic.
A specific set of people? What did we just say that individuals are?
Specific people, well, the specifics. So specific people, if we're talking about individuals compared to people.
Specific individuals as a whole, but a specific individual. So that's singular, each individual person. Cool. Persons is the same way. So then what does respect to persons mean? It says he does not respect each individual person of any group. Then what does that mean?
Oh, I thought you said it right there. Of him not respecting individual people.
Yeah, but you're not explaining it. All I did was say the same thing with an extra word. I didn't actually explain it. What does it mean?
That's what I'm getting stuck on. That's what I'm getting tripped up on.
It's not that hard. All right, Thomas. Do you know what respect of persons means?
Not really.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
guys, you guys got to keep these definitions for today because there's a few of them you guys did not remember. Set it as a separate piece of paper so you can look through for phrases. And I think you guys should do that from now on. Yeah, you have your individual words, but you guys need to have a paper specific to phrases and what they mean. All right? Because there's not a lot
So
of phrases that repeat through the Bible, but the ones that do show up in multiple places.
with this
But you
would
want
be
to have,
respect of persons.
Yeah, respect of persons. What that means is to have more respect for one person than another, to treat people differently.
Hold on. I'm writing it down on my phone.
Or
Could you
unfair
redo that?
treatment. Yeah, I'll say it like this: unfair treatment, having more respect and better treatment for one person than another.
Better respect.
Oh, I hope you guys didn't hear that.
I heard that, but could you repeat it one more time? Not the blowing nose
Having
part.
more respect for one person than another, and better treatment for that person you respect more than the other person.
As in, God doesn't show more respect for one person over another person in that regard. When it adds the
Well, you
Noah
can't
part.
forget the treatment part because it's one and the same.
So God doesn't show better treatment above another person or treat a person more fair than another person.
Unfairly than another person. Yeah.
Unfairly than another
He said
person.
more fair. There's no such
Unfairly.
thing. It's either fair or not.
So
Yeah.
that's what he was talking about in that part.
Yeah.
Doesn't take gifts, doesn't treat the other person more unfairly than the other, doesn't sin, which I already brought up with the example.
Now, with that in mind, we know that God takes gifts. But in what reference does God take gifts?
What we read
Charles?
it about in the Old Testament was the offerings, and what we give, like separate from, if we,
Exactly. So
so
does that mean
just
this
like
is a contradiction here?
no,
Then
because
what is
I
it
have
talking
to,
about here with taking gifts?
so he's bringing it up in the sense of like briberies. God doesn't take
There you
briberies.
go.
You can't bribe God, basically.
Exactly. So what is the concept, now that you know what that phrase means? What is the concept he's actually getting at in verse 7?
Oh, re-explain what I was saying earlier about how he doesn't sin. Um,
Well, no. What, like, because that's part of sinning. But what is the concept he's getting in there? Consider everything he pointed out. They all are under the same umbrella term or the same umbrella phrase.
about being a
Concept.
righteous God is what I was thinking. That was the first thing that came to my mind when all
No,
of
that's
those
too
come together.
generic. What does
Oh, that's too
respect to
generic.
persons have to do with?
Oh, that's too generic. All right.
What does respect to persons have to do with?
Not treating someone above and beyond or below and beyond compared to the others.
Mm-hmm. And then what does not taking gifts have to do with?
It's just not taking the briberies, which we all know if you take
What do those
briberies,
two
that's
have in common?
if you take the briberies, if you treat other people a certain kind of way, you're evil. So if you don't do all those things, you're righteous, as in you're doing the
No,
right thing.
Charles. No.
What do you
What
mean
does
in
taking a bribe and treating people differently based on respect have in common? Those two subjects.
Oh, the first thing that
There's
came to
only
my
one
mind was
thing they
the
have in
the
common.
the I thought about evil, wicked. That was the first thing that came to my
No,
mind.
no. If somebody is more righteous, somebody's following more, is it evil to give them special treatment? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Doesn't God do that? Don't we see
Yeah.
that men who are righteous men of God get better treatment from God than people who are wicked to God that are supposed to follow God?
Yeah.
So,
So with this one, I don't know at the moment.
all right, Thomas, what is treating people differently based on your respect for the person or taking briberies have in common? I mean, and taking briberies have in common.
Ain't it kind of like a teacher's pet in
Oh
a
my
sense?
goodness. Thomas, what do they have in common?
Ask me the question one more time.
What does treating people differently based on the level of respect you have for them and taking bribes have in common? Being bribed to do something and treating people differently based on how much you respect them.
You're picking and choosing. Honestly, I just think it's picking and choosing favoritism.
There you go. That's part of it, but it's unfair treatment. That's what they have in common. Your judgment is an unfair, unjust treatment. If you're getting bribed, you're not doing a righteous choice. In other words, you're treating somebody differently because of what they've given you, not because they're in the right, not because they're doing the right thing, because they're bribing you. If you're giving someone better treatment because you respect them more than another person, you're giving them unfair treatment. Now, if somebody is more righteous to you than another person, is that unfair treatment to treat them differently, Charles?
They're more righteous. No.
Exactly. Thomas, if somebody's doing everything they can by you and they slip up once, but you got another person who is always doing wrong by you and they do right by you one time, is that unfair treatment if you give the guy who does right by you all the time special treatment?
Pretty much.
What? How is that unfair? He does right by you all the time.
No, I meant the opposite.
Okay. Y'all are off today. So, yeah, the thing they have in common is it's unfair treatment. But there are unequal treatments that are righteous. If everybody is treated exactly the same, that's not righteous because there are people doing right and people doing wrong. There are people trying to do right and people trying to do wrong. So just because something is unequal does not mean that it is unrighteous, which is why here, Charles, when you said that this is all the thing they all have it connected is that God is a righteous God. No, that's too generic. It's that his righteousness is also shown in that he treats people fairly. He doesn't give people unjust treatment. That's what that has in common. Do you understand
Now I
that now,
get it.
Thomas and
Now,
Charles?
oh yeah. Now I get it. Now I get where you're going at.
Right.
So now here goes the next question, Charles. What does that have to do with the heeding or the warning in 6?
Oh, thanks for throwing me off. Um, oh, like a separation. The separation from God versus man.
What? Charles,
Take heed what ye do, for ye judge not for man, but for the Lord, who is with you in judgment. If it ain't the separation, then no, I don't know.
y'all just guessing today. You ain't even looking at the context at all. He told them, Charles, I'm gonna reset it one more time because this is ridiculous. Y'all are just guessing. You ain't even looking at the context, which is the whole reason we here, wasting time. Look at the context connected. You don't judge for man, you judge for God. And then he goes into talking about what kind of judge God is. So how does that connect to 6?
I just told you earlier, I don't know. If it wasn't the answer that I had, I
You
don't know right
need
now.
to judge righteously. This ain't difficult, this one. You guys are so off today. I'm getting frustrated. This one's not hard. It's so straightforward, it's ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous. He just told these judges, you don't judge for man, you judge for God. Then he says, and God is a righteous judge who judges fairly. What else could it be if not to tell them, you need to judge fairly? You don't get to have respect to person. You don't get to take bribes. What else could it be? Ridiculous. You know what? I apologize for getting frustrated at you guys. But you guys need to be more invested in the context and pay attention to what you're actually reading. There is no reason you shouldn't have gotten this. Instead of looking at what's connected, you're throwing out guesses, bull script, complete crap out of nowhere when the answer is right in front of you. Look at the surrounding context. It's not hard in this specific section, but you're guessing. You're not even looking at what is connected. Well, I'm in LA and I wore blue pants in a blood neighborhood and I got shot. I have no idea why I got shot. That's what you just did. We know that in a blood neighborhood, normally, there's an anti-Crip neighborhood. It's normally the same. So the first thought would be, what is the connection? Well, look at the surrounding context. Well, if I'm wearing the wrong colors in the wrong neighborhood, they think I'm from a different gang, stepping on their territory. Huh, that's crazy. You guys need to look at the surrounding context. And I am sorry that I got so frustrated with you guys, but this was ridiculous. Today was ridiculous. Look at the surroundings and don't just guess. And it won't be that difficult. And when we have a phrase or we have a word, you know what you need to do? You need to have the phrase paper and the dictionary paper as 2 separate papers always with you whenever we're doing Bible study, just in case they come up. Have a folder. Folders have flaps with little containers on the left side and right. Have a folder like that. Here's the folder of terms. Here's the side of terms. Here's the side of phrases. And when something is right next to it, think about whether or not it connects or not. What would respect a person and taking bribes have to do with judging? That's so straightforward. It's crazy. What do judges do? They judge, they determine what is going to happen, who's in the right, who's in the wrong, who gets punished, who doesn't. So, what does treating people differently have to do with judging? Oh, I guess I don't know. Come on. Anyways, guys got to look at the context surrounding. and not just guess and not just give up instead of actually reading. If you need to reread. But and here's another thing. Let me say this too. And this is a big point of correction. Thomas and Charles, when you reread, stop reading just the one verse. Read the whole section. I shouldn't even had to say that.
You
but I
mean the section we read, or you mean, like, let's say if I'm
No,
the
if
last
need
reader,
be,
you
the
mean,
whole. Start off with your section. See if you can get it from there. If not, then reread the whole section.
okay.
But Charles, if you read 4 through 7 out loud and tell me you can't figure out how 7 connects to 6, read it all together out loud again.
All right.
And try to honestly
Verse-
tell me you don't know how that connects.
Verse 4. And Jehoshaphat dwelt at Jerusalem, and he went out again through the people from Beersheba to Mount Ephraim, and brought them back unto the Lord God of their fathers. And he set judges in the land throughout all the fenced cities of Judah, city by city, and said to the judges, take heed what ye do, for ye judge not for man, but for the Lord, who is with you in the judgment. Wherefore now let the fear of the Lord be upon you. Take heed and do it, for there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts. Yeah, no, you explained it earlier on how those two come together. It completely went over my head, so that's on me.
No, but what I'm saying is it shouldn't have. If you read the whole thing together, that's what I was proving right now by having you reread it. You read the whole thing together as once instead of just one verse, which you guys do sometimes, and I've held off hoping you'll just figure it out. But I can't do that. When you read just one verse, you're not seeing the whole context connect. So if you're struggling to figure something out, read the whole section. The whole verse by verse is good to understand a little bit. And Thomas, you do this a lot. You'll read one verse and then you're still confused. Well, no, duh, you're still confused. You're not seeing the connection. And if you start, even if you're the first one to read, let's say we started on 4. Yeah, you're able to understand this. But let's say we started on 7. If you just read that verse by itself, Thomas, are you going to have any idea about how it relates to 6 or anything? If it's just by itself?
Nah.
Exactly. So when you reread, stop reading just the one verse. Read your whole section. Because, Charles, you've done this a lot too, where your context slip ups will happen from a verse that happens after the one you're explaining. You're reading them as if they're this whole separate thing. Remember when I explained how the context of the Bible works? It's like a forest with multiple sections of different types of trees. You start off with one leaf. That's a word. That connects to one branch. That's a sentence. That connects to one tree. That's a verse. That connects to a group of trees. That's a chapter. That connects to a section of that type of tree. That's the book. And then the entire Bible is all the sections of trees. It all connects. You start off little, but you don't stay little. You see how does it connect on a bigger level. So if you can't get it from reading one verse, read your whole section together again. And if you can't get it from reading your section, read 5 verses before going into it as one reading. And if it's at the end of the section, Read your section plus another 5 verses if needed. But don't just read the one verse that you're tripped up on. You're not going to get past it because you're not looking at the whole context. If you read, wherefore now, let the fear of the Lord be upon you. Take heed and do it, for there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, nor respect of persons, nor taking gifts. That just sounds like a general commandment. If we read that by itself, matter of fact, I'm going to read verse 7 out loud to show you guys this. I'm going to read verse 7 and I'm going to read it through to verse 10 and tell me if you get the same context as reading from the part it's connected to. Wherefore now, let the fear of the Lord be upon you. Take heed and do it. For there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts. Moreover, in Jerusalem did Jehoshaphat set of the Levites and of the priests and of the chief of their fathers of Israel, for the judgment of the Lord and for controversies. And when they returned to Jerusalem, he charged them, saying, thus shall ye do in the fear of the Lord, faithfully and with a perfect heart. And what cause soever shall come unto you of your brethren that dwell in the cities between blood and blood between law and commandment, statutes and judgments, ye shall even warn them, that they trespass not against the Lord, and so wrath come upon you and upon your brethren. This do ye, this do, and ye shall not trespass. See, when I read it, even with the next part of it, I'm still able to get that understanding, right? Charles and Thomas?
Right.
We're still talking about judging righteously. But if I read 7 by itself, wherefore now let the fear of the Lord be upon you, take heed and do it, for there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts. That could look like as do right by God generically. Do right by God because he don't treat people unfairly. Do right by him. Now, is that the context of what we're reading, Charles?
No.
No. It changes it from a generic idea out in the ether to a commandment for the judges. That's the difference between by itself versus connected with it. So when I ask how it's connected, and you go back to 6 by itself, and said to the judges, take heed what ye do, for ye judge not for man, but for the Lord who is with you in judgment. That by itself, be warned what you do, because you're not judging for man, but for the Lord who is with you in judgment. Okay. When it talks to take that by itself, you don't judge for man, but for God. That sounds like my judgments. I'm going to be discerning what God wants. That's what that sounds like by itself. You see what I'm saying, Charles? Again, it's generic in the ether, not specific.
It's
Just
not
you don't
specific enough
judge for
because
man,
it's
but
just
judge
by
for
itself.
God.
Right. Because you're not taking
Yeah,
in, you're not putting 6 and 7 together.
exactly. So on the 7, it just sounds like do right by God. On 6, it just sounds like it actually sounds like a whole different context by itself. 6 by itself sounds like you're judging for God. So, what would you be judging if you're judging for God? Well, if you're judging for God, well, that would include reading the Bible. What does the Bible actually say? Making sure that you understand what it says. Okay, that's what judging for God would be when you think about it generically. You're not judging man, you're judging God. Because when we read judge for man or judge for God, You're looking at it as who you're judging instead of who you're judging for. And then, so by itself, oh, I'm judging for God. Okay, so I got to make sure I'm reading the Bible. I got to make sure I'm doing this. But when we put them together with 6 and 7 reading together, and said to the judges, take heed what you do, for ye judge not for man, but for the Lord, who is with you in the judgment. Wherefore now let the fear of the Lord be upon you, and take heed and do it. For there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts. So in other words, there's no unfair treatment of God, and there is no bribing God. And you're judges, and you're not judging for man, you're judging for God. Oh, put them together and we see I'm judging man, but I'm not judging for the purpose of man. They are not the one who they are not the reason I am a judge. I'm not judging because of man. I'm judging because of God. So this is saying that the judges need to be fair in how they treat people and how they judge, and they can't be taking bribes. So when you read those two verses separately, each one is completely different than if you read them together as one thing. You guys see how that created that problem for you? And can you
Oh,
guys
there's a lot of things
understand
that
why I was
created the.
frustrated?
I was gonna say there's a lot of things on. There's a lot of problems that I had saw, and no, I understand the frustration because now that I understand it, it's like, man, something so simple went over my head, just like that.
Yeah. And take into account the other thing that you were slipping up, I guarantee it, was
Let me go
you
back.
forgot to take into.
It was
Can you hear me okay?
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I said, yeah, you cut out
Oh,
for a
my
quick
bad. We're
second,
talking
but you're
over
good.
you. We were talking over each other. Go ahead.
So the other thing that you kept on slipping up on was you forgot the definition of the word for.
I was about to say,
You
I don't
read
think it was
for
that.
as today's. That's definitely part of it. For you judge
Wait, I
not
got
for
4 wrong.
man. When you
I thought
said
it
it
was
in your
the
answer, you said judging for man, judging man.
Oh no,
So
I
we
didn't know I
already
got
said
4
what.
wrong. I thought it was the smaller grade. That one completely went over my
No, no,
head
no. I'm
too.
talking about why you slipped up on 6. You slipped up on a
Oh, let me go
bunch,
back.
but the reason part of the because your answer makes no sense if you don't mistake the word for.
Yeah,
Reread
no,
verse
earlier
6.
I thought
Yeah.
verse 6, I thought it was take heed, not for, because I don't remember discussing about for. It was
No, no,
take
we
heed.
didn't go into the word for. I'm saying you already know the answer for word for, and you didn't take it into account when you were doing your guess. Because
Oh, I didn't take it into account. That yes.
when you read it like we read the word for today. Take heed what you do, for ye judge not for man. Okay. When you read that, you read it like judging man. That's where your answer came from and why you made your mistake.
Yeah,
But if you read it
you're
with the
right. You're right.
replacement
You're right on
word
that part.
because, you wouldn't have had that slip up. And said to the judges, be warned what ye do, because ye judge not because of man, but because of the Lord, who is with you in judgment. That makes it easier to understand. You read it like we talk about, like we talk about the difference in the word for and how it's today versus what it was then.
I gotta go back and listen to it. I think I remember what I did. I think I did do because ye judge, but then I put not for man. I think I said that, or I think I tried to explain that earlier. I gotta go back and listen
Possibly.
to it. I think
Possibly.
I did because ye judge. The first 4 I did because, but everything else after that was just it was a mess.
Yeah.
It was a chili bowl.
Yeah. So you guys got to keep that stuff in mind and look. And like I said, when you go to reread, Don't just reread like the one verse. And to top it off, like I said, I really believe you guys need to stop rereading in silence. When you read out loud, you can hear the words. Hearing it makes a massive difference on the ability to understand. So I'm going to do this test with you guys. From now on, at least for the moment, when you guys are needing to reread it, I want you guys to reread out loud. I don't want you rereading silently. All right? Thomas and Charles.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll see if that makes a difference. But don't forget your definitions of phrases. Don't forget your definitions of words. And again, I apologize for getting frustrated and raising my voice at the situation. That's something I'm working on. But well, no, but just that. So, anyways, does anybody have any comments or questions before we pray it out? All right, then go ahead and pray us out, Charles.
All right. Everybody go ahead and bow your heads. Father, thank you for giving us this study. Even though there were some mistakes that were made, still we got, we learned something out of it. Something that helps us become a little sharper, especially since we could record it and put it on social media like Facebook or YouTube. This is something we can go back to help us get sharper on getting the context and re-explaining it a little bit better. Separate from the Bible study, I pray that everybody gets some good rest tonight and be ready for tomorrow. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful night.